Okay, so welcome to the podcast. We're joined today by Rob and Alex from Napton Wright.
Hello.
How you doing?
Hello.
Morning. Yeah, very
I
good.
said morning then. I think that's just because it's dark.
Yeah, maybe. Can you tell everybody who you guys are, what Napton Wright does for us?
You go first.
Me?
Mm-hmm.
What Napton Wright is?
Yeah.
Well, at its most basic, we're a marketing agency based out of Brig. Been in existence for 9 years now.
Yeah.
I feel like a bit of an incomer because it was actually Alex and
Right.
Louise, his wife, who set up the business originally. But they very kindly invited me in 2019 to come and join as their director of operations.
Can I just say, we invited you in 2018.
Oh yeah, it
and
took a bit of time, didn't
took
it?
a year to actually come in.
Was you a bit reluctant to join at first?
He just didn't like me. Coincidentally, I met Rob at about the time that we set up the business in 2014, because Rob was then dating his now wife, who is friends with my wife. And so we were the only non-farmers in the room, like a couple of digital marketing nerds. And so we bonded over that. And then we bonded over cycling, and then went for a bike ride. And basically I asked him on a date into the business on a bike ride. So that's kind of when it kicked on from there, didn't it?
So had you already started the business?
Yeah. We started it in 2014, Louise and I. So my wife Louise, she's the Napton, I'm the Wright, and imaginatively, a bit like on like Britain's Got Talent or something like that. I'm Louise Napton, I'm Alex Wright, and together we are Napton Wright.
I mean, you joke, but we've done the exact same thing.
Yeah. You've done it in a much cooler way. Hebb&Griff.
Yeah, my full name at least is too long to put into a nice, concise logo, though. So.
Yeah. Be right the way.
Keep it short.
Round the front and back. So Louise and I set up, and Louise worked for Cancer Research UK in their events, she's an events manager, events director. So she did a lot of kind of offline marketing and relationship building like that. And I worked in social media and digital marketing for 10, 15 years. So combined the two together.
Awesome. Makes perfect sense.
And then we found the only other digital marketing expert in the area.
Scraping the barrel on cream of the crop. I'm not quite sure which that one was.
Do you feel like there was a lack of kind of digital infrastructure in North Lincolnshire then? Or?
Yeah, there definitely was, and there definitely still is.
Right.
And that's not. There are loads of brilliant marketers around, loads of brilliant digital creative businesses. You guys, for one.
Thank you.
But back Louise and I moved. She's from Lincolnshire. We moved back up to Lincolnshire in 2013, and I worked for another agency. And then I was looking around thinking, this is odd because I've been immersed in London and there are agencies down there where they're all collaborating and loads of people kind of sharing cool stuff with each other. And you come up here and there wasn't really that. And I thought, this is frustrating because there were sort of hubs of Lincoln was doing some interesting stuff. There's a bit of interesting stuff in Grimsby, Dribs and Drabs in Scunthorpe, loads in Hull. So I went for a job interview in Hull, or a discussion with a guy in Hull. But I just couldn't be bothered driving over the bridge into Hull, more importantly. The bridge, nothing, it's into Hull. So there was definitely a sort of a dearth of expertise. And that's actually... When we set up the business, it was really to market one of the businesses that was set up on the farm. Louise is a farmer, and they'd set up a new business on the farm. I was going to sort of do the marketing for that, and then one thing led to another. I couldn't do that, so I did some consulting. But what we really wanted to do when we set up the business, and this is something I think that Rob bought into, was to create a community of experts in the business around the outside. We work with you guys, we work with loads of sort of really, really interesting, brilliant minds, brilliant executioners of stuff. And we want to sort of bring in young people and give younger people in particular more options. And it sounds like quite lofty aims and ambitions, but it's still very much part of it. We go into schools and do talks, and we have work experience, and we work with universities and things like that to get those people in. And what we want to do is enable people to think differently and to have sort of broaden their horizons. And even if they only come to us for a year, 18 months, and then they skedaddle down to London, Manchester, Leeds, whatever.
Which has happened. We've had that in a positive way.
Yeah, definitely.
Set them off on their career ultimately.
And and help them along. So there's one in particular who came to us and worked with us for 3 or 4 months. knowing that she wanted to move to London. Then we used some of our connections to say, look, hey, why don't you try and engage with them and get a job down there? And she's now absolutely flying, and a couple more haven't they come through the door, and that's really rewarding, because as long as someone gives absolutely everything to us while they're with us,
that's all you ask.
and then they go on. And the other side of it is then kind of returners, so people who've grown up here or grown up maybe even somewhere else and kind of bounce back like Louise and I did. Then to give them something to focus on, so actually I can come and work for you. So we've got, and we've given, our team has been really diverse, like cultural diversity and diversity of opinion and things like that is really important to us. So we've had people who've kind of been off through childcare and things like that. So given birth, had a few years off, back into work, and they're sort of thinking, oh God, I need to sort of get back into it, and it's really difficult. And so we've given them opportunities, and they've really excelled. And people who've been working in slightly different industries and have come into the agency world, and they bring different ideas with them and different things that challenge us. So we're always looking at that, and that was one of the aims.
It's a great mindset, I think, being able to offer more than just your business. You're giving back to the community, and you're allowing creatives to flower, I guess. In the local area. It's really nice.
I mean, as Alex said, it's kind of what brought me to Napton Wright really in the first place. It wasn't just the opportunity to do something different and to have the opportunity to take a bit more control over what it is that I was doing and my sort of decisions in my career. But actually the vision that Alex and Louise sold to me was this sort of creative hub in North Lincolnshire, and that sort of creation of opportunity for local young people and for other creatives that maybe didn't have the opportunities that I had growing up. So that was really empowering and special and drew me in ultimately. That was what was exciting about the opportunity. And we had the small matter of the COVID pandemic that sort of came into that when I joined, and
you brought it.
I brought it. It's my fault. Usually is. And that sort of hold the plans that we maybe had for what that meant in reality. But I think since then, we sort of pushed forward with that, and having the apprentices that have now joined us, and we've been through a couple now, and they've gone off to bigger and better things. And we've got one now working with us that's excellent. And that's really what it's all about for us, I think, really. And the school visits that Alex alluded to have been great to be a part of as well. And really wakening people to what marketing can be about and how diverse an industry it can be. And, you got elements of analytics and data analysis and mathematics, then you got the science behind it, you got the creativity behind it. As you know yourselves, it's a really creative, diverse industry in itself. So there's lots of opportunities for people to get into it. It's about companies like ourselves being able to provide that for people.
I have a marketing background, and it was doing the creative side of things there that made me want to be a media production company, basically. That's what led to where we are now.
I think it's often the case, isn't it? So people experience a load of different things, realise that they're really good at something. That was brilliant.
That was
all
single
So they experience a load of different things, realise that they're really good at something, and then kind of major in it and get on with it.
Yeah.
And I'm always really amazed by people who can set up a business when they're 20 and scale it from there. Brilliant. That no way that I could have done that at 20. I was too busy being at university and doing all that stuff. But actually, you see a lot of people who get sort of 5 or 6 years of experience, and like you, they kind of go, well, actually, I'm really good at this. I'm really interested in it, and there's an opportunity now for me to get in and get it done. And here you are.
I think it's more impressive when people like Ollie, who haven't worked in a creative field, like Ollie worked in logistics, and then you just decided to make this jump and you become a full-time creative, essentially.
I'm just winging it.
So you must have faced challenges as a business, and it'd be interesting to hear what kind of challenges you have faced and like how you've overcome them, especially, like you say, you're 9 years in, we're 3, nearly 4 years in. It'd be interesting to sort of compare where we're at and maybe what we've got coming up.
So what I would say is that, having been there from the beginning, it all goes swimmingly until you start employing people.
We hear that a lot.
And that, I'm a strange sort of mix of introvert and like love being around people. I love team sports, and I love having the people in the office. So this kind of hybrid working, sometimes it's a bit annoying. Although other times I like being on my own. But the bringing in of people and starting to employ people it took a load of weight off my shoulders because they were doing the work, but also it brings a whole load of new challenges, and we're seeing that now. There are only 9 of us, so it's not a massive team, but you see that. And I think Rob said something like this morning, everyone has their own lives. We were discussing a particular challenge that we're facing in the team, and it just comes from something that's nothing to do with work, and everybody has that. And so that then, I'd say all the way through the 9 years or 8 years of employing people, it's the human side of it. And actually, I really enjoy that. I don't enjoy the sad bits, the challenges that people face. But I do enjoy the other side of it, of helping people, nurturing people, enabling them to be the best version that they can be. So I think generally, I listen to quite a few podcasts, and there's one that always sort of asks, what's your greatest strength and your greatest weakness? And there's a consistency around this, that generally the greatest strength is the greatest weakness, or they're intrinsically linked. And I think that the greatest challenges we face have also brought the greatest joy. And that, I don't mean to sound trite about saying that, but actually this, with people, they are the hardest, but also the most enjoyable thing about running the business. And I think then, clients' problems that they bring to us, unpicking those. Maybe clients have lost somebody. We had, sadly, a client passed away. That's a really difficult one. I've only had that once, and that is really, really difficult. But flipping onto the positive side of that is actually, how do we then scoop up that business and say, hey, look, you've trusted us till now. We'll take it on in lieu of them, and make it happen. So I think generally the challenges always bring positives off the back of it, and we're both incredibly positive people, optimistic, realistic optimists, aren't we?
That's a good way to describe it.
That means that we sort of say, well, right, okay, this has happened. How are we going to deal with it? And let's move on, rather than...
So instead of taking it negatively, you think, right, like how do we actually come away from this positively?
100%, And the team supports us because we support them. And I think the way that we try, and the culture we try to foster, we've not sort of sat down and said, this is what the culture is going to be like. It's just been a very organic thing, I think, between us. We're quite different people. Alex sort of alludes to the fact that he's quite introvert, but then very much extrovert, and he's always the one out at networking with colleagues, and very much been the face of Nat Right. I sort of tend to sit behind the scenes a bit more, as in the operational role that I have. But that works really well together because, Alex is the one that has the ideas and really pushes the business forward. I'm the one that's trying to implement it, I guess, ultimately for them. But it's not solely that, is it? It's not like there are ideas that come from you, and I think that's in any partnership, and it's a bit like a marriage in some ways. You've got if you have two, if it's too distinct, and there's no crossover in the middle, then it doesn't really work. And the crossover is that Rob understands the kind of the creative, the visionary stuff that I'm trying to explain to him, and he created a piece of software that we use, a tool that we use for managing the business internally. It's got a notes function on there, and he created a section on that which is for banging ideas down, and it's like, well, this bit, mainly this bit's for you. So this morning I was like away on that, like adding stuff to it, and at the moment we so we'll come onto it in a bit, but we had a big positive change in the business in the summer, and so that has led to a lot of operational stuff. So in the lead up to it, there was a lot of my time, and then since then there's been a lot of Rob's time, and so what Rob doesn't need me to be saying is, I've got this great idea. I was just driving back from Hull. I was driving back from Hull last night for a networking thing, and I had this good idea. So basically, he's created somewhere for me to put these ideas down.
So you're not constantly pestering him with ideas.
It's called a shredder.
But I think then it's opened up to the team as well, isn't it? So they can put these ideas down and say, look, how about we do this? And crucially, he's put a date on it so that if there's something that's immediate, then you can put a date on now. But the rest of it is, and I can't remember how I phrased it this morning, but it was like, this is something for the future, but I had this idea about doing this, and then another one, and then and I have to phrase it. It's a bit like, again, with Louise at home, I sort of say, well, look, this isn't now, but it's just in my head, so I'm just going to sort of vomit it out a bit, and then it's there. And then we can carry on. But
it must be the same with you guys as well. You must be full of ideas, and with the business relatively young, and it's just, what do you work on first? I think that's the hardest part of all of this.
We're guilty for coming up with having a lot of good ideas, never writing them down or implementing them. So it's like, I remember that idea we had.
Yeah. And I think that comes back to your question as well about challenges. It is about what do you focus on first? What do you prioritise? And how do you stop getting distracted by all the other things that you can be doing? That, for me, is personally, if we stop getting distracted, the business would probably be a lot further on than what it is in truth. Because there's so many things that you think, that'd be great to get into that, or it'd be great to think about that. And I think that's the hardest part, isn't it?
I noticed that you've got traction on the book on your shelf over there.
I've not read it.
You don't need to read it. You just need to have it. You just need to have it. That's enough. And so Rob brought that book into my world, and it's brilliant. But we have not focused enough on it, have we? And I think that we've done bits of it, and I think that's kind of reflective of the business as a whole. It's like, well, we'll just do this, and this goes really, really well. Oh God, we've got to deal with that now. And I guess when you've got a couple of creative brains on it, and then you're trying to get stuff done, and clients are coming at you, and teams are coming at you, and collaborators and things like that. I guess you kind of get those things as well.
Certainly, I think it's been quite apparent in the past couple of weeks because we've had kind of a lull in practical work. So we've been doing a lot of administrative stuff, and then we've also got practical work that still needs doing slightly. So that's kind of having to take a back burner. So it's like finding the balance, really. I mean, is there? Have you got any tips about how you can manage that apart from hiring people?
Well, I don't know. I'd say what I would say is something I've said in the last kind of 12 months is that if I was given my time again to go at the business, I would build it in a slightly different way. And I think that it was initially me doing most of it. Louise doing kind of operational stuff because she was studying for a foundation degree in agriculture and running the farm and setting up a hospitality business. And so I was kind of doing the creative side of things. I would then have brought in a project manager or a VA or something like that to manage stuff, to make sure that projects came in, work came in and then went out. And I would have been better at kind of outsourcing work because I'm not very good at managing outsourced people. I'm not a very good project manager. So if I'd had somebody to do that, then I think the business would have grown in an entirely different way. However, I wouldn't change anything because we've had some brilliant people through the door, brilliant clients, really, really great work, really sort of satisfying and enjoyable time of things, which is, that's all you can ask for, really, I think. But I do look at other people who are really operationally brilliant. They just get stuff done and they really focus hard on stuff. And they're a lot more ruthless than me, I think. And Louise often says, he should be a bit more ruthless on stuff. Yeah, okay. So I got rid of her. And I think going back to challenges, the people challenge, I thought that we would have more difficulty hiring people in this area than we have had.
Right.
Almost, we've used a recruitment agency once, and that brought in a really good person. But it was a bit of a cheat, really, because I knew the recruitment agency, and they said, "Hey, we've got this guy. Can you come through us, and we'll get him for you?" So it wasn't really like we went out. Everyone else has come through people we know and the relationships we built, and that's why this community is so important, I think.
Do you think, like you said, because there's not that many agencies around here that especially offer like what you offer, a bit of a stepping stone, do you think that's why it's been a lot easier to get people in the door, because they because it's maybe harder to find someone who wants to give that opportunity to you? I think
we generally hire based on this sounds so try it again, but we hire based on the cultural fit.
I think it's important.
But as long as they can do the work to some extent, that's fine. If their vision is there and if they are aligned with us, the team get on really, really well, and that is almost more important than the technical side. You can teach the technical side. So the people that we brought in are people that Rob's known. Just sort of said, well, hey, we're doing this. Do you want to come in? And that's been great. Or people that I've known, people that I've met at networking or something, and you keep those relationships going. And so I was used to in my London agency days of just people chopping and changing between agencies, and that doesn't really happen up here. And I think that's because you kind of have a handful of 10-person-ish plus agencies. Then you've got Hull, and you've got Lincoln with sort of slightly bigger agencies in, and then Leeds, and maybe some in Doncaster, but there aren't. And then there's sort of like 2 or 3 person businesses that, you know, some don't really have any aspiration to grow, and that's fine, but they're not really going to be hiring. So if people look around, they don't necessarily see a vibrant agency scene that they might see on the North Bank or down in Lincoln. So we need to do something to change that, I think.
I think sort of expanding on that around the sort of cultural fit point, it's also about us, much like yourself, Ollie, about being open to people who maybe haven't had direct industry experience but have those transferable skills. And a lot, you know, we have had people working with us that haven't had that agency experience necessarily, and I think sometimes that's been a benefit. Much as there's maybe been times when we thought, wouldn't it be great if we had somebody just straight out of an agency that we could pick up and plonk straight in and do the job that we need them to do. But I think actually that comes back to that diversity of opinion and experiences that actually enrich what we do.
Yeah, definitely. Clients value it, I think, as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you know, one of our key points is that we have to positively challenge. So we don't just take stuff on face value. If someone comes to us and says, "Yeah, we want this doing," well, actually, let's just take it back a few steps. Like, what are you ultimately trying to achieve, and then let's work out how we can do it. And particularly with the business, so for 7.5 years, it was sort of a fairly generalist, you know, doing of marketing stuff, creative agency. And then the last sort of 18 months or so, we've really focused on sustainable marketing, sustainability, sustainable brands that really want to make a positive difference to the client, to the planet. And that's not, you know, sustainability, it's got to go beyond that now. It's got to go, right, we're trying to fix this. So it doesn't mean that we're just chasing after kind of, you know, green brands. This is businesses that want to make a difference and want to change the way that they're doing things and change the way that the impact that they're having. So, you know, even if that's sort of feeding into the supply chain of the, you know, renewable sector or into the decarbonisation side of things, you know, this is what we're kind of passionate about. I did a architecture and planning built environment degree, and so that's kind of been in me for the last 20 odd years since I graduated. And I think that as a team, we want to make a positive difference. And that, again, that comes back to bringing the right people in. We don't just want people who are there just to, you know, to get all the glory and things. This is actually a bunch of people who work together as a team to get stuff done. So
they care about what they do. They like to challenge. They like to go above and beyond. You know, it's those skills that are so important and make the difference to the clients that we work with. And them themselves, they get that personal benefit and that kind of personal growth, I guess, really, from actually being able to think differently and apply themselves differently when they've maybe not had that opportunity where they worked previously. And I think that's something we've always tried to kind of foster. And again, to have something to work towards in terms of the sustainability goals and that kind of objective of working with more of those kind of companies that are doing better for the planet. Again, there's that feel-good factor that comes from that, really. And it is much more than just because that's what everybody's doing. It's, no, we genuinely care about these things. You know, we all live locally. We've got our families that are growing up around here. We want them to be living in places that are better for the environment, that are, you know, being looked after, and that they can say, well, we're having a positive difference to making that happen, really.
And there's a lot of cool stuff that you can do with it. So, you know, you're endangering some worlds of just being look at those guys are a bit boring doing kind of steady away stuff, and I think that's, you know, we're both quite sort of calm, measured characters, and, you know, the things that people see are this, but actually, it, you know, as an agency, you've got to have an energy, you've got to be vibrant. You know, you guys, you can't just turn up with your cameras and do. You've got to bring that energy. It's your job is to do that and to make people excited and say, you know, whatever you're shooting is going to be really exciting. Whether it's, you know, people might objectively look and go, that's a boring corporate video. You're putting energy into it. You're making it different. And, you know, I think that, you know, there are other kind of videographer company, media production companies around, but, you know, you've got to know what you're good at, and you guys will be different from another company, and you've got to bring that with you every time. And that's the sort of the approach that we take.
Yeah. So how's the change been from to how have you found it niching down, I guess, into the environmental side of things? Has it been quite a good change so far?
Definitely positive.
100%, yeah.
Because it means that we're focusing on what we're doing much more. So, you know, the team should reflect the leader's attitude to life. And I think the team were sort of a bit loose because we weren't being focused. And now we're focusing on that. So, we're asking the questions of clients every time that they come to us, whether it's a prospect or an existing client. And the team's like, they're holding us to account and saying, yes, okay, we're all right doing that work, but should we be doing that? Because that doesn't really fit with what we're trying to do. So it's been a really positive thing. And also it gives us something to sort of hang our hats on. And, over the past 9 months, which feels like about 9 years, we've changed the look and feel of the brand as well. So
it's not this anymore.
It's
the old much. We should just give these to you as a gift. That's right of old.
The parting gift. But and that's been we actually brought in external designers to do that we'd never met before. They came on a personal recommendation, but we'd never met them before because we didn't want them to have any preconceptions about us. And they did some really good kind of brand discovery work and got to the heart of what we were. And we were actually really pleasantly surprised by what they produced.
I love the way it looks now. I think it looks really smart. Like the website's beautiful.
Thank you. We're still sort of itching to do more with it. So we've kind of only scratched the surface, I think, with what the kind of plans are for it. But there's so much more to come around it all. And it is, I've sort of talked about this before, I think, with Alex, but I used to work for Ongo. Based in Scunthorpe Housing Association. It used to be North Lincolnshire Homes. I went through a rebranding exercise with them back in the day, and they had this kind of corporate council feel to it when it was North Lincolnshire Homes, as was. But the staff and the team that were based there were very vibrant, passionate individuals, and the process of becoming Ongo was almost like them sort of coming out to who they actually really were truly inside, and the kind of support that they gave to the tenants, and so much more than just the kind of the housing services that the average housing association offers. And I think we've been through a similar process with Naps and Wright, with the brand and us finding our feet now with this is what we stand for, this is what this is all about, this is why we come to work in the morning, this is why we're passionate about what we do. And to actually have a visual way to represent that now is really kind of the cherry on the top of that process, really.
And I think that awesome. It's been frustrating because for a year or so we've been telling people that this is what we're doing, but there's no evidence of it. And so we've been like I think we used it a few times where it's like a caterpillar in the chrysalis. It's like, want to get out. And now we're like beautiful butterflies flapping. We're not yet because we haven't actually released it yet. But
got a wing in there, haven't we?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, so when we started that conversation with the design agency called Number 75 Design, brilliant, down in Lincoln, and they started the work, and we'd finished the piece of work by about sort of March time, and at that point I had a conversation with a guy who I'd known for quite a long time, and I ran an agency down near Newark, and he said, right, I'm looking to step back. Do you want to take on my agency?
Okay, yeah.
So, okay, right, interesting. So then, Rob, Louise and I talked about it, did all the numbers. Our accountant incredibly supportive with it, which when we thought, usually accountants would go, oh, no. But he was just like, this is brilliant, good idea. Yeah. And it's something we've been looking at for a while to acquire other businesses and grow through that route. So grow our client base, grow our kind of our influence, our community is a word that we use a lot. So that then took us sort of 3-4 months to go through, and that completed at the end of June. And so that's kind of, that took a lot of our time. So we didn't release the sort of the branding stuff, and actually it gave us a bit more time just to sort of change our message or add to our message a little bit. And I think one of the key things about the fact that we've changed how we look and how we feel is that it's not just about that. It's actually about what we do. That's the big difference. And the fact that we can almost reveal that this is what we've been doing for a while, and our clients know it, but no one in the wider world knows it. Not that everybody really cares. We're just another marketing agency, but actually, if you're interested in it, then you should care. And again, comes back to that community. Thank you. That's really good. So it comes back to that kind of community thing that we keep talking about. That we are now within that renewables, planet positive, clean energy community, and we actually it's not just about winning work for us. Actually, it's about making the area better. Okay, well, how can we raise the aspirations here? How can we get people excited about that? They need to employ thousands of people across northern Lincolnshire. Well, what can businesses do to attract those those people in to an area that isn't normally on people's radar if you're coming from outside? And what can they do? We're involved in an amazing project at the moment called Project Renewable in Grimsby, and that's about educating kids and getting them up to speed so that in the next 5-10 years they're going to be ready to join that industry, and they're passionate about it. And so there's lots and lots of stuff that we're really, really pleased with and really excited about, which is kind of the acquisition of Bazoo and sort of integrating their client base and their community into ours has been a challenge over the last kind of 3 months or so. A really positive challenge, exciting challenge, and it's Rob's really got stuck into the operational side of that. But it means that things have got pushed. So what we should have been doing in May, June, we're now doing in October, November, which has been a bit frustrating. But
because it was the acquisition that kind of drove the brand launch maybe a little bit before we're ready to do so. It's fine. I think sometimes you need these things to force you to get things done.
Clearly, you're both very passionate about renewable energy and sustainable. Have you always been that passionate? Where did it come from? How did it start?
That is a really good question. As well.
Do you want me to start then? Because we'll get a bit deep and meaningful here, but I'm not. I've never been a particularly religious person. I was taken to kind of Methodist church services or chapel services when I was a kid, and I never really got it. In truth, never understood it. It didn't really work for me. It didn't float my boat. The one time I do feel kind of a degree of spiritualism, if you like, is when I'm out in nature, in the outdoors. I used to do a lot of wild camping. I used to go on hikes on a weekend. Still do it as much as I can. I've got a young family now, so I'm trying to get them into it now as well. And I've just kind of always had this love of nature, which a lot of us tend to have. And I think to be able to work to protect, it's like you said, it wasn't just about sustaining things, it's actually about regenerating things, because we're doing so much damage at the moment, and without getting too Greta Thunberg about it, we do need to look after things better. And so to be able to have the opportunity through employment and through work and opportunities to be able to actually make things better through more effective, sustainable marketing, is a bit of a win-win. It ticks all those boxes in terms of our own kind of ethos and outlook on the world and the planet, but also then supporting local businesses with how they can do the same thing with their marketing as well. And we're only scratching the surface. We're looking at our own supply chain and the companies that we work with, and what it is that it kind of means for us. But I think the more we look into it and the more we become well versed in kind of those concepts, the more we're realizing that we can do more, and that we can, not without getting preachy about it, but we can support others to do the same thing, really. There's a few sort of opportunities we're looking at in terms of where the business goes, in terms of the way it's structured and the way it's maintained, which could be really exciting for us, and could be a bit of a first for the county. But that's a real commitment for us to kind of change the way that we operate. And I think it's an exciting potential. It's something we're really exploring quite deeply. But again, it's just a proper commitment to what it is that we're trying to achieve here.
Well, without giving away too many secrets, what does sustainable marketing look like?
So a lot of it is, what doesn't it look like?
Right.
And at the moment, it's still, most brands are relatively early in their kind of process of looking at sustainability and digging right down into, from where they are all the way through their supply chain, everything that they do, their carbon footprint, everything. They're quite early in that. Very much we are as well.
Right.
Because it is something that, yes, it's been going on for a long time, but generally the bigger organisations with bigger budgets have been doing it. Have they been doing it as well as they should? And have they been doing it as credibly as they should? Well, I'll leave that for more intelligent people than me to say yes or no to. But you have to be honest about what you're doing. Any brand is sticking their hand up and saying, "Oh, we're sustainable, we're environmentally friendly." Are you truly, or that's a bold statement, saying that you are environmentally friendly. It's also a bit wishy-washy. you know. But if you're saying that, you've got to be able to hold yourself up to interrogation about it, you know, when people start pulling it apart. So actually, it's about responsibility, taking responsibility for what you do, having a responsible approach to the way that you source products, the way that you employ people. Even, you know, from our point of view, you know, we look at kind of the carbon footprint of websites and even down to communication strategy. What are you emailing? How big are your emails?
Right. How many files you're storing?
Yeah, that's it. It's just
when someone says they're environmentally friendly, they need to be environmentally friendly in all aspects of what they do.
Otherwise, it's just nonsense, isn't it? It's just saying a word.
I was trying to explain to Ollie what greenwashing was before you guys came. You're probably better place to explain what that is.
Yeah, I wish I had the exact. I don't think there's an exact definition, but I guess it's using terminology and ideals as your marketing messaging, your brand messaging that make people think that you're doing something that you're not.
Right.
And
so you're saying that there's maybe quite a lot of people out there that are just saying it just to get people's attention.
Yeah.
And they might not be environmentally friendly or green at all.
Yeah. Or they're picking out something.
Yeah.
They're saying, you know, well, actually, we'll talk about plastics, and actually, you know, we're against plastics. Like, well, okay, surely it should be more about the journey of plastics, the reuse of it, the recycling of it, and what they can do, you know, how long they're going to last for. So the greenwashing side of things is essentially BS that's used to make people use my mum might watch it. So using sort of terminology and ideals that actually make people think that you're much better than you are, or you're much more environmentally conscious than you are. And when you dig down even just below the surface, and they're like, well, no, that's just a lie, or that's just something that you've made up, a story that is trying to convince people that you're doing something you're not.
I think there's probably an example of an event that you went to last night that you might want to talk about. But one thing that caught my eye recently was the fact that, again, it comes back to that sort of transparency and honesty angle of it, and just talking openly about these things. And it was interesting to see that Lego had been working on trying to develop the bricks that were made out of more recycled plastics and recycled materials, but as they were finding that ultimately it just wasn't working. You know, they're breaking, they weren't as structurally strong as they used to be. So they had to be built out, or they had to be made out of the materials which are unfortunately quite damaging to the environment. You know, the oils that go into plastic and that kind of thing. So it's about what else can they do to offset that kind of impact, really. And there'll be lots of stuff out there about how they've done that ultimately, but the very fact that they've had that open conversation about it shows that they are thinking about things and that they are considering different ways of manufacturing. And much like what we're talking about in terms of the websites that we're starting to develop, they are starting from that environmental standpoint. Is, you know, what is the impact of this on the planet in terms of carbon output, in terms of the data? Do we need that whacking great video on there? Sorry, guys. Or
Need three.
You know, and the images that go on there and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
The good news is you'll know there's ways to optimize that, so you can still have those beautiful images that you guys create and the photography and all the rest of it. And ways to defer the loading of it, blah, 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 all boring technical stuff. But that's the point. I think it's about having those conversations. It's about looking at things a little bit differently. And again, that sort of ethos that we have around challenging positively. One of the things that we're trying to promote more is that when we get somebody that comes to talk to us about maybe building a new website, well, actually, do you need a new website first and foremost? Can you actually look back at what you've already got and make some improvements to that so that it is better, more performant, gets more leads, whatever it might be, without having to throw the baby out with the bathwater and create something new from scratch, which obviously takes time, it takes effort, it takes materials, it takes energy to make those things happen. So there's lots of opportunities out there, and it isn't a difficult thing necessarily. There's lots of simple things that we can all do to have a positive impact. You know, I mentioned about the file sizes, just the amount of stuff that we store on the cloud these days. It's very easy to forget about it and think, oh, we'll just buy more storage. Well, that's got to sit somewhere.
Right,
you know, the cloud isn't a ephemeral thing. It is actually a physical storage on a server somewhere. Yeah. So again, anything we can do to kind of reduce the amount we're storing and transmitting of emails and that kind of stuff, the real simple things that we can do. It's just taking the time to think about it, really.
Do you find that people are quite surprised about what you can suggest to make companies greener?
I think maybe they're surprised at how simple some of the steps can be.
Yeah.
And maybe just thinking about, one of the things that we talked about there was about the carbon output of a website, for example, and the fact that you can even measure that now to a degree and understand that the website that you maybe once had was outputting, I don't know, something like 10 megs worth of carbon output versus when you reduce it down to 1 meg or something, that has a tangible effect in terms of less energy that's needed to be consumed and all the rest of it. So if you can talk to people about that and educate them, I think that's very quickly, that's a really simple way that we can actually have a positive impact on what we're doing.
I'd never even thought that there's like a carbon output for a website.
It's not something
really
you
interesting.
really consider at all. But with a website, for example, if that's got like loads of pages, my understanding is all them pages will be stored on a server, so that's taking up server space, which is then making it a bigger carbon.
And it's the energy that's used to power the servers and things like this, producing grams of carbon. And I think that I can be quite black and white on things in life, and my view is that pretty much everybody could be doing something better, and that is not just talking about the environment. That's just everything. Just be a little bit better, and I think that yes, that's idealistic, but if you have that in your mind, then actually you might just sort of think, well, maybe I won't just, and little things like overboil the kettle and things, and that's the stuff that people talk about. But actually, it makes that tiny
boiling away.
It's got an urn. But yeah, so just little bits along the way, and then because you start to think, well, actually, I've got to do something massive. Oh, well, the only thing I can do is put solar panels on my roof or something. Well, actually, the solar panels have got to be made, and then what happens to them at the end of it? Well, maybe we'll work that out in 10 years' time more effectively. But actually, it doesn't need to be massive things. There's 60 odd million people in this country. If everyone's doing one little thing,
it's going to amount to a massive thing.
And that's what we're looking for here. We're just a small agency trying to make a difference, which again, it sounds a little bit kind of naff, but it's what we're about. And actually, if we can use the creativity of our problem solving is what I think sets us apart from some other agencies. And there are some brilliant agencies out there and brilliant individuals, brilliant freelancers. And I'm not, that's great. I'm concentrating on what we do. And our fact that when we're presented with something, the guys on our team will look at it and say, right, well, actually, you could do that differently. You could do that differently. And sometimes clients, they're looking at it and go, what, you're taking too long. I didn't want this. Okay, well, we're not for you then. Yeah. Actually, if you don't want us to get to the heart of this problem, then we're not for you, because actually what we don't want to do is build something brand new and then build it again in 3 years and then again 3 years after that, or build it and then you go, well, actually, I thought about doing this. Did you know about that when you were talking about the website? Yeah. Well, why didn't you tell us? It's actually just pulling everything and asking the questions. And one of our values is effectively pulling on the thread. Just keep pulling at it. And we tell clients, we're going to do this. So please don't get annoyed, but we are going to do this. We also then have to be agile as a team. We've got to make decisions quickly. Any decision is better than just umming and ahhing about stuff. So we have to get that balance. And again, sometimes the fact that we haven't all worked in agencies before, that can be a bit of a surprise to people. Like, oh, well, I've got to decide. Okay, right. But that's fine, because people learn and they adapt the processes, and actually it does. We have a really harmonious environment at work. Sometimes a bit too harmonious, however, not in that way. Not in like a not like relationships. I can hear it in all of you. But yeah, but yeah. So it's what we're trying to do is be better. The team always be better. You are not. So we've got this far, and I haven't mentioned that I worked at Facebook, and lots of people are like, "Oh, he talks about Facebook." But I learned so much. So I grew up in a small village in Lancashire, and I was a really shy kid, and sort of went through regular sort of schooling. And I was very fortunate to go to a decent school that, and my parents are brilliant. They kind of coached me along, and they gave me the sort of room to do what I needed to do, and supported with the sport and things like that. Then I ended up leaving university, I was like, oh God, what do I need to do here? I need to do something. I'm too shy. I need to pull myself out of it. So I went and got a sales job, which was kind of pushing myself way out of my comfort zone. But I ended up just talking to people on the phone, business to business sale, advertising sales, and I'd make 10% of the number of calls every day that my colleagues would, but bring in more money. And that, that was cool. I ended up sort of getting into work at Facebook, which was completely the opposite from that sales environment. So sales was just, you're not allowed to sit down until you made this number of calls, and bang, bang. You get to Facebook and they say, are you on the bus with what Facebook's trying to achieve here? Yes or no? Can you demonstrate that you are? And somehow I managed to demonstrate that I was. And then they sort of said they almost didn't care what you were, they didn't sort of say you have to do this today. It was like, this is our goal for this quarter, and this is the end. This is the kind of the future goal. Go and do what you're good at to get there. And actually, we brought that into what we do. And so we say to the guys, point yourself in this direction. That's where we're trying to get to at this phase. And how you get there is up to you. If you want to wiggle a bit, then that's fine. But just keep talking us through it. Take us through the stuff. And that kind of, they used to have these stickers around the place at Facebook that said, this journey's 1% finished, which was you're like, oh yeah, this is cool. And after a while, you're like, Christ, I've been here 3 years and we're still only at 1%. I haven't been doing anything. But that's sort of the process, the situation that we're in now, where we 100%. Sort of think there's no end point. But we're not finished for the first bit. Yeah, we've still got a long way to go. And actually, we're really excited about what lies ahead and about the fact that the team are being challenged and the clients love what we're doing. And we're moving offices in about a month and a half's time to somewhere that's I don't like the word optics, but when you're a business that's promoting sustainability and you're in quite a quirky Georgian building that heats the marketplace rather than heating inside. Then you turn the heating on, as you guys well know, until we booted you out. And so
it's like the whole secret conversation you had about it on the last podcast. Can't really talk about it. Being kicked out. I'm not quite sure why.
Well, if you hadn't done what you did, then we wouldn't have had to ask you to leave.
Still wiping up those things.
But so we're moving somewhere it's got panels on the roof. It's got infrared heating and stuff like that. Like that little bit that makes a difference, so that our own footprint or the sort of the print that we're leaving on the planet is much lighter than it is right now.
You want to be practicing what you preach and you want people to see that.
And we did look at things like my wife, the farmer has the farm. Can we do something on there that's like a really sort of like almost a net zero sort of passive house type thing? But it was never going to work out really. But what we've got is a really, really good solution, isn't it?
Yeah, and we could have gone full remote. There's companies that have done that. I don't know how they've done that. That's not us.
No way.
You'll know yourself from the search you've probably recently had around finding this place. There's not a lot of great, inspiring office space around North Lincolnshire, in truth.
Right.
And when you do see something, you've got to go for it. But the nature of our business, much like yourselves, that we want to come together as a creative group of people, and we felt it acutely during COVID when somebody once said to us that we now feel like we're just a bunch of freelancers that happen to work together, and that was soul destroying because that's not the kind of culture we were trying to build. No. So we've always got to have this physical place that we come to, and as Alex rightly says, it's got to be right for us. It's got to fit the way we're going with the business and the environmental challenges that we're facing, and that's exciting. That's a big next step for us.
I think that interestingly, when we set up the business, we were in Market Raisins because it was from home. Then we moved to Lincoln. We were down there in Spark House for a year. Then we moved to Brig. The challenge I always perceived was the hiring of talent, but actually the biggest challenge has been the office space. Finding somewhere that is open plan.
It makes it's made a big difference to us moving here.
Yeah, this place looks cool.
I feel like we could keep going, to be honest, but we do have to wrap up. One last thing that we like to ask our guests is what advice they would have given to the younger selves. So if you were to be able to talk to your 16-year-old, 17, 18-year-old self, what would you tell them?
Get a time travel machine, go forward, learn a bit, and then come back.
It's great advice.
I think for me, I had 16 thoroughly enjoyable years in the public sector, working for housing associations, councils. Much like yourself, Alex. You cut your teeth there, didn't you, Matt? The one thing that kind of I struggled with was I just wanted to do so much more, and sometimes I felt held back, and that's just the nature of the business. It wasn't me being better than them or anything like that. It was just the things I wanted to do that I couldn't. By taking the jump that I did to work with Alex and Louise and the fantastic group of people that we have, it's now down to me and Alex and Louise to make things happen. I've got that level of control that I was kind of maybe missing previously. So I kind of wish I'd maybe done that a bit sooner. I've cheated because Alex did all the hard work with Louise to set up the business. I kind of came steaming in 5 years later.
Not at all.
To come in and take things forward. But I think it would maybe have been to take that jump a little bit sooner.
Yeah, take risks,
Yeah,
that's interesting. Yeah, the risk-taking thing is probably what I would say. But also, I give this advice to young people: just open your eyes and let the world present you with opportunities. But you can't just sit back and do it. Letting the world is actually getting out there and learning stuff, talking to people. I didn't talk to enough people, and I did because I was so shy. So I think that I wouldn't change anything in my life, because there's no point thinking like that, in my view. I wouldn't change anything. It's been ace. But I think that it would just be, enjoy the moment a bit more, and actually, you'll be fine in the next 2 years, 10 years, 20 years. You'll be fine. But just enjoy the moments a bit more. Open your eyes to stuff. Absorb, say yes to more things, and do it and experience it, because when you have kids, the experiences are different, and your time is taken up making decisions for other people, with other people.
And you've helped me take more risks. And maybe I've sort of just pulled you back sometimes when you're making too many risks.
I think that's the thing about having somebody to bounce ideas off and fall back on. That's, I think, what we found really. Where can people get in touch with you? Where can people find you?
Hanging around Brig Marketplace, in the
Not for
bandstand.
much longer.
No, we might still be hanging around there, just from another office.
If anybody does need any office furniture, by the way, just do it. So I've got quite a bit to get rid of. But naptonright.co.uk is our website. Or on social media, obviously.
We'll be more on social media in the next few weeks as we start, spreading our butterfly wings. So find us on there. But that's one of those things where you got to have the right message for the right channel as well. So don't expect to see me and Rob doing TikToks necessarily.
But that's what I was hoping for.
Send us the facts. We'll deal with that.
Yeah.
One of the big things that we will be doing is more stuff like a bit of audio work and things like that. So just sharing knowledge, learning out loud, which is something brilliant that Rob has brought into play. So,
awesome. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers. Good to see you in your office.
Yeah, thank you. All right, thanks.
Right.